The red heifers have finally reached Jerusalem. That's right. There hasn't been a red heifer in the land of Israel in over 2,000 years. Now, if you don't understand the significance of this, basically, in Jewish culture, they believe that a red heifer is the perfect sacrifice that must be offered to usher in the return of the Messiah. And these haven't existed in Israel. It has to be a perfect, spotless heifer to fulfill their own Jewish prophecies. Well, oddly enough, some Christians in Texas started to raise these heifers because some Israelis reached out to them and said what they were looking for. And now the first red heifers have arrived in Jerusalem, in Israel. They're there right now. And what you are going to get to witness is a Jew encountering the very first red heifers in the land of Israel in 2,000 years. But before we get into that, guys, my name is Ruslan, and I've actually had the privilege of going to Israel back in 2022. And I have a lot of friends still in the area. So I think understanding some of these sorts of things helps us get context, which is why we're talking about it. You see, this channel exists to encourage, empower, and inspire you to live a life that blesses God. So if you're new here or if you're not new here, please make sure you're subscribed, as we're edging on 600,000 subscribers. And it would mean the world to me if you help me reach that goal. All right, let's jump into the video. This is some crazy stuff. Shout out to the Israel guys, okay? This is not an endorsement of everything that's on your channel, but I loved this video. So they bring out Yar Levi Music. He's a Jewish musical artist, and the Israel guys are Christians, and they take him to see the very first red heifers.
So it's really actually very exciting because the first time after 2,000 years, we have here in Shiloh kosher real red heifers. So the red heifers are actually the key to the temple and the Temple Mountain. It says in the Bible that the temple is called the house of life. It's a house full of the presence of the Lord, presence of God. And if one got in contact with death in a funeral, in a hospital, so he has to go through a process before he can enter the house of life. This process, it says in the Bible, has to be done with the ashes of the red heifer. The ashes of the red heifer that was made on the Mountain of Olives was mixed with hyssop bush and a cedar tree, all out of spiritual secrets, and then was mixed by a priest with water that came from a life spring. So it's the source of death, which is the ashes, mixed with the source of life, which is the water.
Now, of course, we as Christians understand that this entire sacrificial system is foreshadowing the sacrifice of Jesus, coming, living the life we couldn't live, dying to death we should have died, as a sacrifice, as a propitiation for our sins. This is all interconnected, right? And so if you've read, she's just spitting Leviticus, like she's spitting the sacrificial system that was foreshadowing Jesus. Okay, so if you're like, what does this all sound like? You just got to read the Bible. You gotta read the Bible. You gotta read the Old Testament. Okay, that's why the sacrifice of Jesus was necessary.
The purifying water, and the priest sprinkled this water on a family that wanted to come to the temple. The third day, seventh day, and then they went to a ritual bath to the mikveh, and then they're full of life again, and they're ready to come to the temple. And it says in the Bible, the red heifer has to have 5 conditions to be a qualified red heifer.
Before we get into the 5 qualifications that the heifer needs to be, it's important to note that what they are proposing is very ambitious, because what they're proposing is eventually being able to sacrifice these red heifers on the Temple Mount. Now, which is controlled by Muslims right now, meaning that as of right now, Jews can't walk onto the temple. You can't really do that. Like, it really messes up the status quo. And if you have a Jewish tour guide, you can't just walk on the Temple Mount, right? Like there's an entire process you have to go through. So this is arguably the most contentious part in the world, is the Temple Mount, which is where Jews believe is the rock of creation, where Jews believe that Isaac was almost sacrificed by Abraham before God sent an angel and then sent the ram.
Wow.
Where the temple was built, and where they believe that the temple was going to be rebuilt so they can give the sacrifice, so they can usher in the Messiah, the coming of the Messiah. So this is very controversial, what they're hoping and proposing to do with these red heifers in light of everything that's happening in the region. So the third temple is what they're trying to rebuild. That's the Dome of the Rock. That's the Western Wall, where you see all the Jews lying up and kissing the wall. Right above that is the Dome of the Rock. That's the reason why they pray over the Western Wall and pray at the Western Wall and kiss the Western Wall, is that is as close as they're legally able to come to the Temple Mount, which is now under Muslim controls. However, the main obstacle is that the Temple Mount is currently occupied by the Dome of the Rock. So they can't rebuild it, just as the regathering of the Jewish people's fulfillment of obligations, so too is the building of the third holy temple. Today, many of the preparations for the third temple have already been completed, including the sacred worship vessel and priestly garments to be worn by the Levites. That doesn't mean anything. Listen, they could prepare all they want.
Yeah.
They're not just going to walk on that Temple Mount and take it over and build a third temple. That's going to come with massive geopolitical ramifications.
To fulfill their duties of worship and sacrifice in the temple.
Yeah.
As well as 500 young Jewish men descended from the tribe of Levi have been trained as temple priests to fulfill their duties of worship and sacrifice in the temple. But the temple service can't begin without the red heifer.
So here are the 5 requirements, according to them, for the red heifer.
It be totally red. Now, when I say red, you may think of the color of ketchup, but it's actually a color of earth. It's like brownish red. So there are a lot of brown cows in nature, but it has to be perfect, meaning not even 2 hairs in a different color. And it has to be with no blemish, not even a tag on the ear like they tag all the cows today, and no, not used for anything else, meaning even if I leaned on it or somebody put the coat on it, it's disqualified. So it's very, like, you have to be very...
You can't even touch it. You can't even lean on it. That's crazy.
It's a lot of...
very specific.
A lot of pressure for the people transporting the daggone cows.
Yep.
Careful. And all these years, they were looking for a perfect red heifer in Israel, and they couldn't find one. They found a few, but then they got disqualified because it's a small country. So finally, 3 years ago, somebody decided that they want to look for the red heifers all over, and they found that there's a special kind of cow called Red Angus, and this cow is, you can find a lot of them in Texas. So they decided to go on a journey from farm to farm in Texas to look for a good red heifer. In the beginning, they were pretty disappointed because every farm they got to, they found that the cows have a little bit hairs in different colors that even the farmers didn't realize. It's very, like, something very small. But then somebody told them that there's one farmer that has the most beautiful looking cows, and his cows win Miss America every year, and they should check with him. And the head of the institute called this farmer and he said, "Shalom, I'm calling from Jerusalem. I know it sounds weird, but I'm looking for a red heifer. Maybe you could help me." And the guy said, "Of course, I'm a Christian. I know all about the red heifers." And not only that, when I decided to raise cattle 30 years ago, I chose the Red Angus because I thought maybe one day my cows could serve in the temple.
So my very practical question.
Yeah.
What are, like, the laws around, like, sacrificing an animal? I don't care if it's on the Temple Mount. I don't care if it's at the Mountain of Olives. What are the legalities in Israel to just cut the throat of a red heifer?
Is there
in a public space like this? Like, regardless, it's happening in public, or that's what they want to happen.
It's not happening in a confined butcher shop.
Yes.
And then my other question is, like, is there procedure to the sacrifice, or can they use more modern subduing techniques nowadays to do the sacrifice? Like you know how they have those
like
those
how
little,
to do the death penalty.
You know those little guns, those little, like, pin guns they put up to the pig's head, and they just shoot a dart and it kills them immediately.
I don't think that's how they.
You think they gotta go?
I don't know how they're gonna do it, but whatever they're gonna do, it's gonna be graphic. So
are they going to wear silicone gloves? Like, you know?
Look, I don't know, but it's all of this is very intense.
Oh, yeah.
All of this is very intense. I don't know if any of this, one, is going to happen. Mm-hmm. 2, if it's going to usher in anything, even if it does happen, the Mountain of Olives, which you can go to Mountain of Olives. Anybody can go to Mountain of Olives.
Yeah.
You can't go on the Temple Mount like that. If they do it in public at all.
Yeah.
And if they do it, what is it? Is it really going to usher in the Messiah? I'm just more interested in the topic in general, and the fact that this dude is about to see the red heifer for the first time. Like, I think that's fascinating to me.
So my question for you is, what is the biblical significance of the red heifer? Because you said you're not sure if it's even going to usher in the Messiah. So is it kind of like a iffy prophecy?
No, they flat out say in this video that they are trying to usher in the Messiah.
No, I know that. But what I'm saying biblically, though, does it say this is going to usher in the Messiah?
I don't think that in Christian theology, in our view of eschatology, I don't think there's anything in the New Testament about a red heifer sacrifice ushering the Messiah.
Wow.
This is Jewish prophecy. This is why there's Jews requesting the red heifer and the Christians are offering the red heifer. I believe. I can be wrong on that.
So the Christians are kind of like, let's give them the red heifer and see.
They could help us bring the second coming of Christ.
Thousands of years later, after the process is potentially coming back, right? Well, Yair, there they are. Wow.
Beautiful.
I mean, those are some pretty fire cows.
I gotta say,
awesome.
I am curious who's checking every hair to make sure that there's not a single hair.
I don't know, but they got a lot of them. That's
They
like
do.
what, five,
Yeah.
four or five cows?
That's at least like 5 weeks of checking hair.
Yeah.
Or yeah, how many years has it been since there were red heifers in Israel? I mean, this is
Probably more than 2,000.
more than 2,000 years since the destruction of the temple.
Right. The Rambam said, the Maimonides says that there were 9 red heifers in our history, and maybe this will be the 10th one.
Yair, when you see these heifers, what do you see? I want, from a Levite, like the dream of the Jewish people for 2,000 years was to come back to worship Hashem, God, on the Temple Mount.
People sometimes think when I'm going to the temple or going to the Western Wall, they're asking me, why are you praying for the wall? And I'm trying to explain to them, no, I'm praying here because it's the closest place to the temple. And same thing with the red heifer. It's not that we are praying in Buddhism or something
Right.
for animals. This is another sign that, as all the signs that we see now in Israel, with the farms,
Yeah.
with all the things that you see, that it's like part of things that written in the prophecies that just happening in front of our eyes. So to see it, I don't know what the future is, but when I see it, it's like a big sign that something big gonna happen.
I should say that the red heifers, like I said, are key for the temple. And the temple is the house of prayer and love for all nations and will bring blessings to all the world. And I invite everybody to take part of it. And it will just, it's a good thing. It's nothing harmful. It's nothing violent. So.
Right.
Well, even more than that, I see it's very significant that the enemies of Israel are digging to the root and trying to make it look something different than it is. Like they're trying to disfigure the pure worship to God that is these cows represent, the temple process that represents. We have the Muslims and also the anti-Israel Christians that are viral content all over online against thinking that this is something bad. I wanted, Yair, for you to address exactly what Moriah also addressed. What's bad about this? There's nothing bad about this. What's good about this? Well, how does this bless the world?
What I like in the story of bringing them here is the fact that the nations was involved. Because, in Psalms we said like, "Egdil Hashem la'asot im elu."
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. The whole like the nations were involved sounds very universalist to me. Sounds very. I understand Jews and Christians, but like now you're like the nations, like the Arab nations, the Hindu nations. It's like, oh, I don't know about that.
La'asot imanu. It means like God did the great things with those people, and then the people of Israel just after saying like, God did a lot of good things with us. So it means that the nations have a very important place in this process of understanding that we're in redemption. So the fact that I'm standing with you here and to know that the nation was involved to bring them here, it's a kind of a reminder that it's not only a process of the Jewish people. And this is making, I think, more beautiful.
Yeah.
That all the world talk about it, the nations was involved to fight against it and to say, hey, listen, we have them.
So he's saying all the turmoil in the land is because they're working towards this act, and this act is going to bless all the nations.
Sometimes we don't feel it enough. We don't give enough respect for those small details in the Bible that means a lot. God could choose that we will fly to the air and feel something, but no, he said like, just take it. And this is a very big test for us to keep believing it, to remember that the way we see the world is different than the reality, the real reality. Well, it's a blessing to be here. I want to say that I was so moved by the fact that the Christian people were involved in this process. It's not that the Israeli people decided to do it.
The nations.
The nations, yeah, and Texas. I have a lot of followers from Texas. It's very nice, and I want our viewers to understand that we need them to pray for this process to be a blessing to the world. We need their prayers. We need them to know that this process is not a crazy process of something. It's a sign. It's just happening.
Yeah.
It sounds like sometimes you just need to open your eyes and to say, all the prophecies of the Bible just happening in front of our eyes.
I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm all the way in. I like the Israel guys' YouTube channel. I love this video.
What are you not all the way in about?
One, I thought the whole red heifer thing was like a Christian thing.
Yes.
So it's interesting that it's a Jewish thing.
I
think Jews requesting red heifers, Christians stepping up to provide the red heifers, and this whole like for the nations sacrifice, I think is interesting.
I did see a comment that did explain, though, the Jews need the red heifer to get the temple. So the Christian prophecy is that we'll have the rebuilding of the third temple, correct? So it kind of plays hand in hand. They need the third temple to do the sacrifice. If we can get them the red heifer, maybe that'll move things along to get them the temple sooner. I guess would be like the Christian tie-in to the second coming.
Yeah, so it's a Jewish prophecy that's a sign of the return. Like the temple being rebuilt is a sign of the return of Christ. But I don't think the temple being rebuilt is necessarily something that Jesus is rocking for. Like, you know what I mean? So I think, yeah. So for us, the return of Jesus, but for them, are they going to recognize the proper Messiah the second time around, or is there going to be an antichrist that rises up that deceives everybody? I don't know. I'm genuinely asking.
I don't want to be deceived. I
don't
want
want-
cheeks, bro.
Yeah. Well, I mean, those who know Christ, I would presume, would not be deceived.
Ah, you're right.
Right? If you know Jesus.
Just
You're
stay
gonna
off
be
social media.
Stay off TikTok. And that's actually why I believe they're brainwashing you to fall into this trap. And I have the proof. If you want to hear more about that, check out this video here. All right? I'll see you over there. Peace.